Hey Nicole, first off, I just want to say how much I miss you. We all miss you and we love you so much. It's been a couple years since I've last heard from you or seen you, but not a day goes by where I don't think about you. I know you're up there in heaven with God. You are the perfect person to be one of his angels, to brighten everyone's day, to make God himself laugh and smile with your silly jokes and your goofy laugh. Man, I wish I could just hear that one more time. I know one day I will see you again, but there's still a lot of work, as you know, that needs to be done. A lot of people need help. A lot of people need leadership. And there's a lot of lives to be saved. So please be with me. Be with all the people that are watching your story. I hope that this message can encourage others. If the world had more people like you, more people with your love and your compassion and just your beautiful soul, I can only imagine how amazing and beautiful a world this could be. This world needs your spirit. Thank you so much for the person that you were and the person that you are. You are such an amazing and great friend in my life. I'm able to do what I'm doing and be strong because of strong and amazing people like you. Until we meet again, Nicole. Hello, and thank you so much for joining us. Today's message is going to be powerful, yet it's so important that we have this conversation. Suicide. So many people in this country and the world right now are having suicidal ideations, and unfortunately, many people will continue to take their life. We need to figure out what we can do to be there for our most vulnerable in our society. It's okay to not be okay, and two, it's okay to ask for help. As a firefighter, this is something that I come across too often, and I wish it would stop. So with that being said, this is Empower the Pulse. I'm your fireman, Isaiah Bowe, and I'm here with my co-host, Nurse Callie.
So hi guys, thank you so much for joining in. I know we went from, back to the basics of discussing communication last episode, and we're kind of diving right into something so heavy, but we both felt the need that we have this discussion because it happens way too often. Mm-hmm. Like just a couple weeks ago, you had multiple people reach out to you about who they lost to suicide.
Yes. I had 5 people reach out and say that they lost loved ones to suicide. And my crew and I, we ran on a person who took their life,
Yeah. I just kind of want to touch on some statistics just to show the magnitude of how much it affects not just people, but especially people within our first responder world. So a white paper report released by Rudderman Family Foundation, they revealed that policemen and firefighters in particular are more likely to die from suicide rather than in the line of duty. Mm-hmm. And to add to that, another study released by the Defeat Suicide Foundation found that 6.6% of first responders have attempted suicide at least once. I know that 6.6% sounds like a small number, but that is 10 times the rate of the general population. So with that being said, it just goes to show that unfortunately we are exposed to a lot of things in this field, and there's a lot of stressors and whatever happens in life outside of work, right? Mm-hmm. And so we are at a higher rate, and I think that's another reason why we think this is an important conversation to have. And with that being said, we are going to share a personal story. More so, Fireman Isaiah Bowe will be sharing a personal story of his beloved friend who died by suicide. Mm-hmm. So yeah, go ahead and please share the story of Nicole.
Yeah, so first off, I want to thank her parents. Her parents both agreed that this could potentially save lives. And that's what, her father worked at EMS as well in a very busy system, understands. because he himself throughout his career had to go through this. And so the people out there about to listen to this, I just want you to know that we got the blessing. But Nicole, I met them out in Texas, and you could tell that she came from a beautiful family. You know, she was full of life and just happy. And we ended up having another one of my buddies, and the three of us just always consistently talking and laughing, making jokes. And her and I would sometimes gang up on my other buddy, you know, and be cracking up. But we'd all end up teasing each other, you know, just it was nice to be able to wake up or go throughout your day and like, you know, I know if I look at that text message, I'm probably gonna be cracking up and all the pictures and just but she was also very important in her community. She saved lives. You know, she worked at the medical centers down there. She would go and helped out the medical examiners, tissue recovery. There's people alive today because of her work. And she was dedicated. She worked long hours, and, you know, she was the type of person, she would tell me, like, if you're having a bad day, you want her there with you. You know, her spirit would just lift anybody up, and she is so accepting, non-judgmental, and you could just tell, you know, if even you're a complete stranger and you're having that worst day, whatever it may be, you know, she would listen, and she'd get you to laugh and smile. And that's something that I love to do as well when, you know, I'm at work or just people in general, like, you know, and but yeah, you know, we were friends for a couple years and got to know her family, and she also had her dog that she loved. The little thing was a hyper little shit, you know, but, you know, she was just, like I said, such a wonderful person. And even though she seemed like everything was happy in life, I guess there was something not right. And, you know, she didn't really complain too much about things going on in her life. Everything seemed to be going pretty well. Some relationship issues here and there. But who doesn't have relationship problems, right? So many of us do, and it's things that we learn from. Right. But, you know, one night I'm laying there in bed, and she was just texting me. And it was very unusual, you know, just seemed down, right? And normally when someone seems down, you know, you cheer them up, like, hey, and it's hard being in a different state, you know, but something just seemed a little different, you know. Her messages seemed a little heavier. I'm just not doing good. You know, I'm tired. You know, things just aren't going my way. And I'm sitting there trying to cheer her up, and next thing you know, this conversation takes a complete turn for the worse. And all of a sudden, she says, "Hey, you know, tell my family I love them. You know, please have them take care of my dog. And just thank you, and I love you, and you were such a special person in my life." And all of a sudden, I'm like, "What the hell?" You know, and so I'm sitting there, you know, I'm calling, I'm texting, like, hey, you know, because I don't know what's going on. I've never experienced this before. And so I'm calling and not answering. All of a sudden the last text she said was like, here's where I'm going to be. Call my parents and let them know this is where I'm at. And all of a sudden, her phone was off. And so I immediately call her dad, and I think at this time it's midnight, 1 a.m. And I call him, and that's a phone call I'll never forget. I still, unfortunately, live with that memory every day. And so I call him, and I'm like, hey, you know, you need to get here now. She says she's going to take her life. Like, I don't know what's going on, but you need to go now. So they immediately go, and I hear back about, you know, it was like 20 or 30 minutes later. I think she had gone somewhere a little secluded. And next thing you know, I get the phone call from her father saying like, hey, she's gone. And I didn't know what to say. It just did not seem real in that moment. I'm like, there's no way this is a dream. Yeah. And I did go in a state of shock. Like I don't know why, then, but now I understand after having some education. But we hang up, and I'm just sitting there, like just I'm just sitting there, just kind of like, what just happened? And so, anyways, that was the last time I heard from Nicole. And so, not too long after, I go to her funeral, and it was hard for sure. I just seeing the devastation upon the family in their eyes, and you can just feel the pain, like just how, and even the family, after speaking with them, like they were lost as well, and I would imagine that, like, what did we miss as well? Like, what did we not see or hear? Were we not there? All these mixed emotions, and so many there for a while, after going to the funeral, so I'm having to try to be strong. I felt it was when I went there, I couldn't portray weakness in a sense, as far as breaking down and crying. I felt like I needed to be there for the family. And it wasn't until a couple months later, I think, that this job had hardened me, calloused in a sense, to seeing this tragedy so frequently, that I had to, it was time until I truly broke down. It wasn't until a couple months later that I don't know what happened. I was going through my life, but just got hit like a train. And I felt like, man, mentally I was at a rock bottom place.
Do you think it had more to do with being callous or desensitized, I guess, from work? Or do you think that you were having a protective barrier of, like, trying to protect your own feelings, in a sense of getting to that point where you broke down?
Right. I think it's interesting you say that, because, so absolutely, there is this protective barrier. And being a firefighter, paramedic, you are dealing with people in their worst time.
Right.
The families, the kids, the friends, even being in the public. And you can't sit there and take in the trauma.
Yeah.
Otherwise, you won't perform.
Right.
So I think that over the course of time, I felt like a failure. I felt like it was perhaps, did I contribute to her taking her life because I wasn't a good enough friend? I wasn't there. Should I have reached out sooner? All these things, this guilt made me put up this defensive wall to prevent the pain that I was going through. There's nothing worse than, I feel, especially in me being a man, than failure. I understand you got to fail to learn and grow, but this is not a game that you lost, or this isn't you performed a wrong task during training. This was someone's life, and they'll never be here again. So, I would say that protective barrier, these walls, this hardened defensive mindset, in a sense. And I don't mean that to sound rough, but if I'm going to be honest,
I mean, that was your grieving. Everybody grieved differently, I believe. Some might cry out loud, some might just avoid it altogether. And it sounds like you tried, as a defense mechanism. I do believe that everybody go through grief in different ways. So to say that's the right way or the wrong way is not anybody's business. We all go through. I can't even imagine having to make that phone call or being the last person she spoke to. That's a lot.
Yeah.
And even though I never got to meet Nicole, I've always felt like I got to know her through you, and she seemed like she was a really amazing person.
Yeah.
And I'm really grateful, and I think it's a true blessing that you as well as their own parents I mean, that's probably like the greatest loss you can ever have, especially when you have such an amazing daughter, to still find light in that and help others who've lost their children or their family members. I mean, this has been less than 2 years, within 2 years. And I'm sure they're still grieving, but at the same time, they are putting their best foot forward and trying to help others who are grieving as well.
Yeah. And
I kind of just wanted to touch on that too. I know there has been a lot of people who lost to suicide lately, especially within our world down here in our valley. And I think it's important that we do touch on some of the signs. I know we might not always see them, right? But there are some signs that might be there and that we might miss if we don't pay closer attention to it. I do think it's important to touch on some of the signs, even though they might not always be there, or it might just be one out of a million of signs in a person who is going, into the depressive state and then potentially into a suicidal state. But I think at least kind of reminding ourselves of what they might be, even though we might see them on a daily basis when we do interact with patients who are suicidal or depressed. I was looking at the National Institute of Health, and if anybody's interested to look at it, they have a list of anything from an individual talking about, suicidal thoughts, but it's not always that subtle, right? Or it's not always that obvious, or people are not always comfortable with saying it right out. So it might be more subtle signs of a person perhaps sharing that they're feeling more sad than usual, or they might feel hopeless. Hopeless is usually a pretty good sign. Shame, guilt.
Right.
Or if they're showing extreme sadness or full of rage, or they went from that state and all of a sudden they're super calm, or never really seen them work through anything and they just go to a calmness. That was also one of the signs that they mentioned in that article. And some of them are behavior changes. You might have somebody who's withdrawing from you as a friend who might have just gone through something life-changing or something that, they took to heart. There might be a sudden change in a person that who's all of a sudden given away like their most prized or most personal or important items. That's another sign. And just perhaps somebody's taking like some extreme risk all of a sudden, whether that's speeding,
gambling,
picking up a new addiction, what is gambling or drug or alcohol, or all of a sudden, is having like super extreme sexual behaviors. I mean, it could be anything, really. And even just something simple as having extreme changing moods, having mood swings. I just want to touch on that because I think we do see it pretty often, at least as nurses in the emergency department. But I think just kind of reminding ourselves that it's not just the patients neither, right? It might be our coworker. It might be whoever in the community that we know or see every so often. Like, oh, that's kind of out of, and that's like we mentioned, go back to basics, communicate. So yeah, I think, just check in on them. We mentioned the basics of communication. Just a simple gesture of just checking on them, I think, is huge. Speaking of communication, I know we talked about this before too. It is equally important that if you are starting to feel that you are hopeless, or even before that, if you start feeling like any sensation of depression, please speak to someone, talk to someone. It's hard for you to help me if I don't tell you what I need help with. Right.
So like I said in our previous episode of communication, and it's got to be on both ends. And I know it's easier said than done. Okay. But we got to have a cultural mindset change and adapt. Okay. And so for the people out there who may not be dealing with these issues and listening and figuring like, okay, well, you got my attention. I want to do more. Okay. One, we start letting people know, hey, I care. I'm here. Leaders need to take initiative to realize 365 days a year, someone is gonna have an issue, some type of stress factor that is going to potentially devastate them.
Right.
To come in and leave it at the door, that is not going to happen. How do you, if someone's child's dealing with addiction and they're up all night and the police were there, whatever crazy situation that just happened, and you expect them to come and work all day long with a smile on their face? Right. No, it's not going to happen. And you don't need to have to be a supervisor. You don't have to be a captain. You don't need to be a chief. If we're going to be leaders, it starts with family. And family means my friends, my coworkers. Be that person that your coworkers and your peers trust. Like, man, I know, maybe I don't know Fireman Isaiah Bowe all that well, but I know I can talk to that guy. Mm-hmm. I know that he'll listen. And that's the other part of communication that we discussed, listening. Listening can be one of the best tools that we can implement in our toolbox. Okay. And a lot of times people just need to vent, let out that stress, come above water. Right. And so on the other end of people who are dealing with these thoughts, feeling hopeless and shame and guilt. Okay. You have to communicate. You have to let somebody know. Okay. And if you think about it, the more negative thoughts that you feel and put into your mind, that's essentially what you'll be. And the same concept of what you eat is how your body's going to perform. If you eat, so if you're putting junk in your mind, you're going to feel crappy. Right. If you're sitting there going like, who are these people? Well, I'm the one that shows up to some fucked up shit. I'm the one as lead of my team, along with my brothers and sisters. We're the one responding to the overdoses. I couldn't tell you how many overdoses in my career. I couldn't tell you how many people I've seen that are gone, passed on. How many mothers and fathers crying. An image right now just popped in my mind of a father standing over his young daughter who had cut herself, wanting to take her life. So trust me, I get it, but still, if I could show up and I was speaking with someone who's in this state, I would just show them love, compassion. And so I would drop down to let that person know, like, hey, I'm here with you. Let's walk together now. And so that person could see in my eyes that I'm there, I care, and their life means something to me. So, but yeah, please, I encourage those dealing with these very difficult things. If you're listening, trust in what I say, please, that it's so important you reach out. It's so important that if maybe you don't have an immediate friend or family member, to make that call to some type of professional. We completely understand, Nurse Callie works in a very, very busy ER, and the amount of stuff that goes on in there is pretty intense. And then also being on the front line, we are the first line of defense for the cities that we work for, and I'm there. You name it, we're there. Anything that goes wrong with people and the environment, whatever it may be, firemen are there. And I am the one that has to look mothers and fathers in the eyes to tell them terrible news. I'm the one having to look at friends and I'm the one that has to see children go through terrible things, the whole plethora of shit, But with that being said, though, with those hardships, okay, we have to look at this in a couple perspectives. One, from the people who may not be dealing or suffering trauma at this point that puts them in that low mindset of suicidal ideations or even worse. And also from the person that is dealing with this trauma. And if we are able to communicate on both ends, okay, one person listening and being accepting, non-judgmental, we need to defeat this stigma. and realize as leaders, people aren't coming into our line of work, whether it's business, the fire department, police, corrections, dispatch, construction. People are dealing with shit all the time. And for us to sit here and think that the way I handle a terrible situation is how everybody else should handle it, is wrong. Okay. We're not all built the same. We don't all have that same mental strength. And even for the people who are strong, I consider myself very mentally strong, right? I see a lot of social media influencers out there and stuff who try to display this alpha mentality. But I think it's a whole lot different when you do our line of work. And then you have your own family tragedies take place. And I am one to say I fell. I was devastated, as well. And so many of people who are very tough, very strong, motivated people as well that I know have fallen too. And for the other end of the people suffering, you have to take that leap of faith. Communicating is strength. Letting somebody know that this is what's going on is strength and courage, right? If you really think about that, I don't know if this person can handle it. What if what I'm thinking is just too traumatic for them to take in? That's why we have professionals out there. And for all the people that, the counselors and therapists, psychologists and all that stuff, what an amazing thing that these people are doing and being there off the front line in a sense for our people. But I think, for me personally, my first line of communication is going to be to my best friends or my family. But if you don't have those things, that's what I'm saying. There's professional help, and take that leap of faith. Do what you got to do to save your life. I don't ever want to. I unfortunately, it's inevitable. Even through this podcast, knowing that people will continue to take their life. That is why it is so important that when you watch this, you need to comment. We need to build that community. You need to let people know, hey, if you've lost someone to suicide, just realize that others are going to continue. Others may be in your same shoes and suffering and feeling the pain. But what a beautiful thing when we come together in unity and community and we share these things so we can be there for others. When we build that bond together, and, I don't want this to just take place here in Las Vegas. I want this to be a national and worldwide thing. We got to come up, build leaders. We got to have that sense of belonging, purpose. I'm here to spread Nicole's message because I know she'd want me to help others in need. She'd want us and to save lives. That's what we're committed to. We live it, we do it, and we're going to continue doing it.
Yeah, no, you bring out some really good points and different perspectives on how to look at it. One of the things that you mentioned that struck a chord for me is the fact that we are different. We all deal with different things, off duty and on duty. And as much as we're trying to leave the door, by the door, or leave our crap by the door going into work, and then same thing coming home, we're human at the end of the day. So you do bring up some good points. Even though it's a hard conversation to have, I think one thing we all could do, which I find is very simple, although sometimes I do have to put the effort in because I might have a crappy day myself, is to treat people as if they do have something going on, right? Like, let's say you guys come through our doors. I might have a crappy shift. I might be hangry. I don't know what, but I try to remind myself to still say hi to each and every one of you because I don't know what you got going on. Mm-hmm. I'm sure you are just as tired, or if not more, than we are, since you can't go to sleep. You're just showing up at 2 a.m. on a call. And so with that being said, I just do think if you're not quite there yet in terms of taking that step to talk to someone right off the bat, just some simple gestures like that might just make a person's day. Mm-hmm. I know it has for me when I've had a crappy day. I'm like, hey, where's your smile? It just reminded me that, still living today. And so just try to be that positive light for someone. Secondly is for those of you who do struggle internally right now, or feel like you're isolated, or don't feel like you have anyone to turn to, there is a hotline, suicide hotline. It's 988. It's very simple to remember. So whenever you feel like you actually need to talk to someone, please dial a number. So whether you are trying to find resources to help yourself or somebody you love, or you're trying to help out within the community, please visit our website at empowerthepulse.com. And we will be adding more and more information as we go along with different topics. And like what Fireman Isaiah Bo was saying, please share your stories or share your thoughts on the comments below so we can have that open dialogue. We'll kind of bring it out in the forefront so people can have that discussion, whether that's, behind the screen or in person. And thank you for sharing Nicole's story. And I am so grateful for her parents as well. As like I mentioned before, taking time out of their days to help people in need, and just giving us the blessing for this conversation. I hope you were able to take some from this too at home. So
like I said, her father, their parents are willing to reach out to those who are dealing with the same issues, and that's how they have found comfort and being able to take the situation of the loss of Nicole and continue on. That's they don't want this to happen to anybody else, but it's going to, right? But what an amazing and beautiful thing that they are doing, and we need more of that for sure. We need more people to just have that communication.
Yeah. And honestly, if I may be frank for myself, I have been in the situation where I wholeheartedly want to reach out to someone because I know they lost someone to suicide, and I just didn't know how to. Part of me knew like, okay, I might not make them feel any better. It's too fresh right now. At the same time, I want to show that I'm here, even if you don't know me that well. And so I recognize that it is a hard conversation to have. But if there's one thing I've learned, I was kind of eavesdropping on you and Nicole's father's conversation the other day. And although I'm a third party, I felt the relief because as long as I've been with you, I feel like as you've grown and worked through some things that you've gone through, I felt like there was always this little, I don't know what to call it, like a dent in your relationship with her parents where you seemed like you wanted to reach out about certain things, but something was holding you back.
Yep.
And from hearing your conversation with him and how he turned something so negative that you thought of, you're the one who made that call, and that last phone call you had with them at that time, and how that might have tainted your relationship. But when I heard him say that he looked at it as she didn't die alone because you were on the phone with her, I never thought of it that way. It just goes to show how much just having that conversation, communicating, how different that whole outlook for me, at least, hearing that. Because I guess I was kind of looking at it from your perspective, and then hearing his conversation with, or how he looked at it, was from a positive, like something so dark, but he had a different outlook on it. I think can make a big difference. And it just goes to show that having conversations can have a great impact for the better.
Yeah, and that's what I was telling people who are listening. If you're not ready, that's okay, because I am living that testimony in a sense, before the audience. It was that guilt in a sense, the shame that I didn't save my friend. Even though if me even getting through would have made a difference, I don't know, right? But also too, like, man, I couldn't imagine being a father and getting that call. And I just felt like every time that I would talk to him, he would see that day or that night and relive it. And that's what I thought, and talking to other people who also have lost loved ones and stuff, and like whether they've walked into it or it happened in front of them and stuff, like having to call other people to let them know, like, hey, this has happened. And they've also discussed the guilt, and the same thing that I'm describing is like, calling that person, they're going to think of their loved one. And so, but yeah, that conversation, and being a man and facing it, was one of the best things for my healing. And we just to be able to continue that relationship and just that love, that's what Nicole would want. Absolutely. She'd want, for us to be in each other's lives. So yeah, if you're dealing with, that being afraid to make the call or whatever, maybe perhaps I'm able to, in a sense, I don't know if motivating is the right term to use, but give you that sense of comfort. And it's a leap of faith. So I'm not saying every time that you make phone calls in any matter that it's going to be a good conversation. We're human. You said we make mistakes. I was angry. Maybe her father absolutely could have responded with like, you didn't do enough. Could have been angry at me, put the blame on me, but he didn't. Instead, like you said, it was love and thanked me for being there. He said, you helped us so much by reaching out to our daughter, trying to being there, knowing that, you were there in a sense. And that was hard to hear. It was just a much needed conversation that I put off for a long time. And for the people listening, man, I have a big heart for sure. I have a damn big heart and I care. So, and that's why we are here once again.
So yeah, just check in on yourself and the people around you. And that's a start, I think. So once again, thank you guys so much for tuning in. I hope you stay tuned for our next episode.
So yes, thank you so much for listening to today's message. I hope that Nicole's story inspires you. And I hope that you see two people before you that are committed and just come truly from a place of love and committed to saving lives. So we hope that you can join our journey. We just couldn't be more blessed as this platform continues to grow. And if you do take the time to like, share, subscribe, that's going to be such a blessing in our lives. So, but once again, thank you so much for watching. Wherever you are, let's continue to learn, let's grow, and together, let's empower the pulse. I'm your fireman, Isaiah Bowe.
And I'm Nurse Callie.
God bless.